Welcome to the Front Office Exchange, where we take a look at the careers of executives and rising stars within the sports business. Now here's your host, Jake Birling.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Front Office Exchange podcast. Our guest today is Mike Birling, general manager of the Durham Bulls. Everybody knows the Durham Bulls. They are the Tampa Bay Rays AAA affiliate in Durham, North Carolina, obviously. But you also know them thanks in large part to the movie Bull Durham, which starred Kevin Costner, Tim Robbins, Susan Sarandon, among others. But the Bulls are also among the, if not the preeminent minor league baseball team in the industry when you consider their attendance and branding and merchandising, on-field performance, and so much more. And leading that charge is Mike, and he has been with the Bulls in some capacity since 1998, and he's been their general manager since 2002. Now, when I worked for USA Baseball, our offices were essentially directly beneath third base of the Durham Bulls Athletic Park. So I was fortunate enough to get to know Mike and his family well, work with his team closely, and watch him work and lead to grow the Bulls into what they've become today. Mike's passion for the Bulls and business and minor league baseball is really unmatched, and he practices what he preaches when he says that you can't get outworked if you want to succeed in minor league baseball. This work ethic, and he'll tell you that of his staffs as well, was recognized last year when he was named the International League's Executive of the Year. He talks about that and a lot more in our conversation, which I think you'll enjoy. So without further ado, Durham Bulls General Manager Mike Birling. Mike, good morning. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
No problem. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing all right. So are you able to catch your breath now? I know the season wrapped up recently, and I know the results probably weren't exactly what you had hoped for, but I know when you're the general manager, there's lots of other things to get excited about. So can you give us a quick recap of the season and maybe the things you're looking at this off season?
Yeah, definitely trying to catch our breath. It was, I think as you get older, it's just that much more difficult, having a minor league baseball season. But, this year was just a little more interesting just because we had Duke baseball. We had 27 Duke baseball games, so our opening day was February 15th, which if you think about that, that's crazy. I think it felt like we almost had a full season in before the Bulls season even started. And then, having the ACC tournament, from the on the field standpoint, obviously the Bulls, it was a difficult year. As crazy as it sounds, I think we ended up 16 games under 500, yet we were 1.5, 2 games out of first place, which, last year was the first time in International League history that every team was over 500, and then this year you set a minor league baseball record with every team being under 500. But that's how baseball goes. But the staff, as you said, it's not all about the on-field stuff. From an attendance standpoint, I thought things went really well this year. Last year, we set an attendance record, and we were only 8,000 off that. So second best year in Durham Bulls history.
Wow. And are you guys done building and bolting onto that stadium? My goodness. I mean, you guys are essentially a big league park at this point.
Yeah, it really has been crazy. The amount of construction, and not just at the ballpark, but all the way, throughout Durham. That's one of the fun things of working for, the Durham Bulls, which is owned by Capital Broadcasting Company, is, we're always thinking of different things we can do. And, we're always given the resources to try to, stay above, stay in front of the pack. And we don't have anything planned at this time for this off season, but you never know, the way things work around here, I could get a call tomorrow and we could start a new project, but it's been a lot of fun.
I mean, truly, isn't this something like 3 or 4 straight off seasons where, whether it's been an event or building out a brewery, talk about a handful of the things that you've worked on these last few years.
Yeah, it's really been, so after, we had the All-Star game scheduled for 2014, and, going into that, we really wanted to, just obviously make the ballpark as special as we could. It was already a great ballpark, but something that we really wanted to showcase to the rest of minor league baseball. So it initially started as, the city of Durham was going to give us $12 million to put into renovations, and we were going to put in, I believe we were going to put in $3 million. Next thing you know, Cal, I don't even know where we ended up, but it was probably roughly a $25 million renovation. And
Wow.
it was, the way ballparks are now, you're trying to find different ways for, just kind of gathering spaces. That's kind of the big thing in the new stadiums. So that was a focus of ours was we took out the entire press box area behind home plate. We made that into a club area, which, obviously from a special event standpoint has been huge. We created this area down the right field line, which is called Jackie's Landing, which is like I said, it's kind of that gathering spot for fans to just come out and it's kind of a millennial spot, I guess, is the best way to look at it. People
You just lump them all together there. That's where they all hang out.
Right. Just lump them all together, give them some beer, and have a good time.
Right.
And then you kind of look at it from the advertiser standpoint. We added a brand new, very large LED video board. We actually put it inside the Blue Monster in left field, which was kind of cool. There's no stadium in the country that has their big video board right in the, actually in play. And then we also added a ribbon board along the right field, left center to right field, which, it's just from an advertising standpoint, it just has made a huge difference. It really elevates you, and that's something we have to do. You have the Carolina Hurricanes here, you have the different colleges here. We have to be able to compete, for that advertising dollar, and to bring those things in, really has allowed us to do that.
Now, what about you personally? How do you top last off-season's award? Now, I know you're going to give credit to your team, and I do know your team, and they are extremely strong. But for you personally, winning Executive of the Year in the IL, what was that like for you? Again, you've got a strong team, and I know people have come and gone over the years, and you've got a lot of support there from the ownership. But for you personally, what did that mean?
Yeah, it was really special. And like you said, I'm really not big into the whole awards thing, and I definitely do give credit to our staff. But for me personally, it really did mean a lot. And, I guess the reason why I say that is, the last, pretty much starting in 2012, we, that was a time where we made a commitment to have the AAA National Championship game here, and then 2 years later have the AAA All-Star Game. So you got, in 2 out of 3 years, you have the the marquee events in minor league baseball. And at that time, when we made the decision to take this on, our staff was pretty much rolling. We had a really good crew, and all of a sudden, kind of right before that, we lost a lot of our key members of our staff. So then it's like, oh my gosh, here we are, focused on having the 2 biggest events in minor league baseball, and we have to recreate our staff. So, that was kind of an exhausting process. From my standpoint, it was a scary process. You think everything is in perfect shape, and then all of a sudden you roll in, and now you have to figure things out, not only from those 2 events standpoint, but from just figuring out how to regroup the staff and get things back on track. So, to see how it all turned out, to end up having the national championship game, to bring in all these new people, to, showcase the triangle with the All-Star game, and then, to top that off, set an all-time Durham Bulls attendance record. That was very satisfying, and it really meant a lot for me that the rest of the International League recognized that.
Yeah. You always hear the saying in sports, whether it's baseball or football or basketball, when somebody gets hurt, it's next man up. When you're the general manager and you've got to worry about the on and off field product, that next man up comes into play with talent. And, minor league baseball is not an easy gig. I mean, it's a lot of nights, it's long nights, it's wearing a lot of hats. So for you, when you balance that, the talent aspect, you talked a little bit about losing several key people before the season. How big of a piece of your overall puzzle is that?
Oh, it's huge. And more so, I guess that's kind of what I have, that's the biggest challenge that I deal with is the personnel standpoint. Obviously we're very fortunate being the Durham Bulls that when we do post a position, we're probably going to get a lot more resumes than the average team. But for me, the culture here is so important. And, we're constantly trying to figure out, whoever we hire, needs to kind of fit with that culture, fit what we do. And then the people we do have here, obviously everybody has, different personalities, as our staff continues to get bigger. Back in the day, with minor league teams, you used to have 10, 15 people. Now that those days are gone, now you got, 30, 40 full-time staff people, running around doing different things. And it's just, that's the biggest part, is trying to figure out how to make sure everybody's on the same page. Everybody has different life changes, whether they're,
Right.
Having kids, whether they're, you name it, whatever happens, because as you just said, the minor league baseball lifestyle isn't for everybody. So that's the biggest piece for me, and that's probably the biggest challenge for me is trying to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page, that we're all, shooting for whatever that, that goal is that year. And just trying to, be a mentor, for our staff, being a leader for our staff. What different issues we have on a daily basis. How can I help them? How can I help them grow? Because that's important. I understand. Even though I've been here forever, I definitely understand that a lot of people aren't going to be here forever. And how can I help them? In their life process.
And along those lines, what are you looking for in those employees? I know you're not looking at every single resume that comes in for the day-to-day, operations. But, you are working very closely with your head of sales, your assistant GM, and roles like that. So twofold. One, what are you looking for in those kind of mid to upper management positions? And then two, when you are out there every day, you do see all of those entry level people, the interns, the people that are doing ticket sales. What are you looking for at that level as well?
Yeah, I still really, I try not to get into the weeds too much with our managers, but when it comes to hiring, I definitely want to be involved. And I think people are surprised with that. When we're hiring trainees, they're getting a call from me, and it may not be a long interview, but it's going to be an interview, because the personnel is the most important thing, is what drives the Durham Bulls. And for me, these guys get sick of me saying it, but I keep talking about the Durham Bulls are a bus, and for me, it's what kind of people do I want to have on the bus. I don't really care about what seat they're in, because that's what I think we're good at. Is I think once we get people in here that are like-minded with how we run things, and in the culture that we run things. We'll figure out what they need to do or what they can do, and we can train them in a way that they're going to be successful. So, for me, it's you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers with their all in. We talk about that a lot here. We need to find people who are all in, and I know that can be a vague description, but people that just get it. This is not an easy thing to get in. People just think that, oh, I love sports, so I want to go work in minor league baseball. It just can't work that way. You have to understand. You have to kind of buy into our culture. You have to buy into the fact that you're going to be asked to do things that you've probably never thought you were capable of doing. So that's really important. Detail. I'm always looking for people that are detailed. For example, if we're hiring an operations position, one of the things with interviewing is, we make people go with a pad of paper, just leave the office, go by yourself, go walk around the ballpark, and write down everything that you see that you would change if you were in fact hired for that position. And you'd be amazed. You got some people that come in with, 3 sheets of, this in this corner there was a piece of grass or a weed, and then you got other people that come in and it's half a page. We want the people that can see things that our fans and others can't see, because that's what makes us successful. We are so into the details, and the details are very important. And like I said, the fans may not see it, but all as a whole, that's going to be very important. And the other thing, it's just, I don't know. This is kind of my management. You just can't get outworked. Nobody's ever going to outwork me. That's just has always been my mentality. And those are the people we're looking at. And that really doesn't matter what the position. those are the people we want in here. And then, like I said before, we'll figure out, where they best fit. They may apply for a certain position, and we may say, hey, I know you applied for this position, but in my mind, that may not be the best one. Why don't you look over here? And that goes the same for our trainee program. I'm really, we've always had a great trainee program. We're kind of different than a lot of minor league teams. They, kids in college, they're gonna bring them in May. They're gonna throw them into the fire because their season's already started, and they're gonna have them do all this, different positions. Probably not positions that they're gonna learn a lot from. It's more just, bodies kind of filling up jobs. We don't look at it that way. Our trainee program is, you're really treated like a full-time person pretty much from October, November until the end of that following season. So we're looking for people who really just graduated out from college that past May, or graduating in December of that year, that are really interested in getting into this business. And so we're going to focus on those people, and then like I said before, we can figure out where they need to be. If we're going to have some in tickets, we're going to have some in sponsorship, we're going to have some in operations, we're going to have some in media relations, marketing. And I think a lot of people think they know what they want to get into, but until they really kind of see it and feel what minor league baseball is all about, they have a hard time with that. So that's when we go back to, are you all in? Are you detailed? What is your work ethic? What are you passionate about? Those are the things that we're going to look for.
And with the sheer volume of the people that come in through this, you talk about the trainee program and even some of the management positions. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but any alumni from those that come to mind? I know John Bishop was your longtime assistant GM, I believe was his title, but now he's gone on to the NBA, and I saw he's now at Texas A&M in a leadership position. But are there other kind of success stories like that?
That's as I get older. So I never really thought about much of that as I've been in minor league baseball.
Come on, you're launching some careers.
Now that I'm older, I actually look at that a lot,
yeah.
And it is incredible the amount of Durham Bulls employees that are out there in the sports world. In fact, we've talked recently about really going through. So I got here in 1998. About going through all of our different people and kind of doing a little alumni board. But yeah, you mentioned John Bishop. Actually, he decided to stay with the NBA. He had taken the job with Texas A&M and it fell through, so he's actually back with the NBA. But you got Gillian Zucker, who I actually took her place as assistant GM. She's the president of the Clippers. You have Brian Crichton, who has been in NASCAR for how long has he been? He's probably been gone for going on 12, 14 years. I think we have five people in the NBA. We have multiple people that are either GMs of Learfield or IMG properties. It's just really cool. That's what
Sure.
That's what we want to see. We don't expect, especially in certain positions, we don't expect people to be with the Durham Bulls forever. Would I love to see that? Sure. But we have been, I talked about us losing people in, the 2011, 2012 time frame. Most of the time, we've had pretty good runs with our managers. We're going, we usually go kind of 5 to 8 years with our kind of same management crew. So if you're under them, you want to move up, and we completely understand that. And what we tell our employees all the time is I just don't want somebody going around sending out resumes, kind of, I guess, behind my back. I make it very clear to every employee here that don't feel bad if you want to go, apply for another job. To me, it's more about the timing. As long as the timing kind of works for everybody, I'm going to be your number one fan, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you find that position you want. And I'm going to do everything to kind of challenge you in your thought process, just to make sure that when you do leave, it is something that you're not going to look back and not say, I never should have left the Bulls. Which has happened a lot. I've had a lot of people that, they kind of go to that next position just because they're either very impatient, or they just think it's the next thing. They may chase some money, and I get that call, and they're like, you know what? I never should have left. And we want to try to prepare people as much as we can, but they need to understand that the culture here isn't the same culture in every business, every sports team, and you have to be prepared for that.
Right. So let's go all the way back. How does a Wisconsin guy end up the GM of the Durham Bulls?
Yeah, no kidding. So I graduated from Wisconsin lacrosse, and I was sports management major, business admin minor, and as one of our one of the requirements to graduate, you had to have an internship. I was fortunate enough that a minor league team called the Appleton Foxes at the time. They were about 10-15 minutes from where I grew up. So, it was just one of those things. I knew I had to get an internship, drove over, and this was not the minor league baseball that it is today. This was a very old ballpark. I think they drew 70,000 people for the year.
My goodness.
Yeah,
that's Saturday for you guys.
Team. Yeah, right. So I just walked in and said, "Hey, I'm really need an internship. Don't have to pay me." And for a team like that, I think they had 3 full-time people, and they wanted any help they could get. So there was like 3 or 4 of us that interned that year, and that was, I believe, that was 1994. So about halfway through the year, our general manager, one of our 3 full-time people, just kind of went AWOL. Nobody could find him. It was the craziest thing. So we found out that he quit the Foxes and went to another team up in another minor league team up in Canada, I think it was. So here you are, you got 2 full-time employees. One of them was the assistant GM and one of them was the office manager. So naturally the assistant general manager became general manager, and he comes to me and says, "Hey, I need you to be my head of operations." So here I am about 2 months into my internship. And he tells me, and it didn't mean anything. He wasn't going to pay me.
Right.
It was just, "Hey, here's a position." So I'm like, great. So season ends, and at that time we had just made an announcement that we were going to be building a new stadium in Appleton later on that year and changing our name. We actually changed our name to the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers. So I guess I did a good enough job.
Wait, time out. Can you please explain us what a timber rattler is?
What was that?
Can you explain what a timber rattler is?
Good question. Yeah, I lived in Wisconsin my whole life, and I never even knew we had rattlesnakes in Wisconsin.
Some of these mascots are unbelievable.
Yeah, they really are. And so the first part was, and I know teams go through this now, changing their name from Appleton to Wisconsin. We got a lot of heat for that, just because a lot of people, didn't want us to get rid of the Appleton
Interesting,
name.
Yeah.
But for us, it was trying to become a bigger brand. So we move into a new stadium. I was actually hired as assistant GM. So you talk about just luck and timing. That was crazy to go from an internship in 1994 to assistant GM in a new ballpark in 1995. Was kind of crazy. So I think we went from 70,000 in attendance to 220,000 in attendance in a new ballpark. Everything was great. After the first year, my boss, the general manager, he obviously got just tons of accolades for everything that he accomplished, with the move and all that stuff. So he got hired by the Milwaukee Brewers. So here you are, I think I was 23 at the time, and you have a board of directors trying to figure out if they want to name a 23-year-old general manager. It took them about 2 months to figure it out, but fortunately I was named general manager of that team. It was a Seattle Mariners franchise. So I worked there for 3 years, and then kind of one of the craziest stories, once again, just incredible timing and luck. We had always hosted a Green Bay Packer celebrity softball game in Wisconsin, and a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, there's this vice president of Capital Broadcasting Company," which I had never heard anything about Capital Broadcasting Company. He had a home in northern Wisconsin, and he wanted to come to the game, so he asked if I would get him tickets, and so I got the guy tickets, and the game ended, and I remembered that, hey, I had gotten this guy tickets. I'll just run down and say hi to him quick. So I went down and said hi to him and his family, and he offered to give him a tour. So I'm walking him around, and he's like, "So what are your plans?" I'm like, "Oh man, I just love it here. I'm general manager of my hometown team." And he's like, "Well, there's a possibility that the assistant GM job of the Durham Bulls is going to be coming open. Would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Well, heck, Durham Bulls, I'll I'll send my resume. So, sent my resume, not thinking that, like I said, that was a dream job for me.
Right, and your resume at that point, at 23 years old, is your GPA and 1 year of GMing, right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
It's my GPA. I worked, 3/4 of a season in a old ballpark with 70,000 fans. And,
right.
Oh, by the way, then I got thrown into this spot.
Okay.
So yeah, I just laugh every time I think about it. So sure enough, they're flying me out here, a couple weeks later, and get offered the job. I think it was in August of 1998, and I'm kind of a loyal person. So I'm telling them, here I am. Sorry, Durham Bulls, I can't take the job unless you allow me to finish the season. I can't leave my team the way, I just can't leave that way. This team meant too much to me. So they're like, oh, no problem. So I was basically flying back and forth from Wisconsin to Durham, trying to learn the Durham Bulls and also running the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers. So left after that season, was assistant GM here for, I think I was assistant GM for maybe 3 years, and then have been GM for the last 14. Been crazy.
Wow. And then that just summarized the last 14 years, just GM for the last 14. So, when you're in an area like the Triangle where college sports, particularly college basketball rules, how have things changed? But for you, what is that yearly, daily battle like? Not that you need to gain relevancy because you guys are the biggest baseball show in town. But what's it like competing in that market? Down here in Charlotte, the Charlotte Knights go up against obviously the Hornets and the Panthers. So what's it like there in the Triangle?
No, you're right. It's hard, and it's for us with minor league baseball, because as much as we want to try to act like, it's all about the players and the Durham Bulls, we know in reality it's not. It's more about, family fun, inexpensive entertainment options. So from our standpoint, yes, we do feel we battle the colleges, we do feel we battle the Hurricanes, but we also feel we battle that trip to the beach or that vacation people's lives are just busy. They're anytime you have kids, whether you're running the soccer games or running the little league games, people's lives are just busy. So we're always trying to figure out a way to kind of cut through all that. We embrace what is going on with the colleges around here. We embrace when the Carolina Hurricanes are making a Stanley Cup run. That's what makes the Triangle just so incredible. Is the sports fans, it's just a special place to live. So with that said, we do have to find ways to get people to come here, and that's why for us it's really controlling the controllables. We're not going to rely on that big walk-up crowd to come out and watch a Bulls game. That cannot be our focus. We're never going to be successful if that's our focus. So what we do, and especially this time of year, we're dealing with packages, we're dealing with season tickets, we're dealing with mini plans. We're dealing with group sales. We're dealing with different events. There's always things that we can be going after that we can kind of separate ourselves out from the colleges or from the Hurricanes. And a lot of that has to do with price. A lot of that has to do with when we play. Being in the summer versus the colleges and the Hurricanes. During the school season and during the winter and fall. So that's what we focus on. And, people are just, anytime I tell people that we'll have, whatever I think the number's close, 53% of our tickets sold before the first pitch of the season. Most people think we don't do anything during the off season. It's so funny
right.
How many times our fans make it sound like we're going to go on a 5-month
How's your vacation been, Mike? Yeah.
Right. I've been here 18 years with the Bulls, and I've never used up all my vacation, and I don't. As much as my wife gets on my case for not using it, I never will, because it's just there's just so much that happens. We may get a week to kind of recharge, but we're already back at it. We're already hiring new people right now. We're already like I said, going through the renewal process. Our sponsorship folks are already well into what they're doing. So And that's what, we're just always trying to find new things to do. I'm always trying to learn. I don't even begin to think that I have this thing figured out. So I'm constantly trying to look for other teams, what they're doing, all across all different divisions, whether it's retail, whether it's marketing, ticket sales, sponsorship, it just concessions. Now that we took over concessions, there's always teams doing some piece better than you, and I'm going to always try to find out what that is and try to implement it here.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of teams look to you, look to the Durham Bulls at what they're doing. But as you just said, are there one or two teams that right now you look at and you say, wow, these guys are just killing it?
Yeah. There's just so many. You're right. There's so many just good, smart people in sports now. On the minor league side, I kind of have, just because I've been in it so long.
Sure.
I kind of have those few teams that we're always, bouncing ideas off of. From my standpoint, it's the Lehigh Valleys and the Toledos and the, Indianapolis has just been, doing some tremendous things.
What about, so they put bacon on a hat. Have you guys thought about putting steak on a hat?
That's one of my biggest challenges here with the Bulls. Right. Is, the Bulls brand is so different than,
without a doubt,
99%
right.
of minor league baseball. So, I don't ever want to feel that I'm kind of squashing all these great ideas from our staff, but it's to me, it's very important that we kind of pick and choose what we do. And, yes, if we did that, could we sell just tons of merchandise? Absolutely, we could. But I try to look at the end game. I try not to look short term, okay, we can do this. I try to think of, this Bulls brand is so important. What will this do to the brand if we do this?
Right.
And that's kind of one of my frustrations of minor league baseball is I think too many teams are trying just to get their name mentioned on SportsCenter or get Darren Ravel to retweet something. That should not be your goal when you're running a minor league baseball team. So that's a frustration. But yeah, that it is something we talked about. We've talked about a lot of that. You see the food craze. You see, Fresno calling themselves the tacos.
Sure.
We could easily do something like that and get a lot of attention. But, I try to be careful with that.
Yeah. What about you personally? Theoretically, there are some of those younger 20s, mid-20s, upper 20s GMs, whether it's in minor league baseball or the NBDL or other professional leagues that are listening. When you were a couple years into your Bulls gig, did you have the mindset of what would be the next step? Did you think about Major League Baseball? And at what point in your career did you say, hey, you know what? I'm in the Triangle area of North Carolina, one of the best quality of life situations there is in the country. I'm in an unbelievable organization. Just give me that mindset as your career has grown.
Yeah, I definitely did. If you would have told me that I'd be with the Durham Bulls for 18 years, I would have told anybody that they're crazy. My intention was, once I left Wisconsin, I literally thought that that would be my job my entire life, just because my family's there, my wife's family's there. That just felt like something I could do forever. But then when there's only one or two teams in minor league baseball that could have got me to leave, and the Durham Bulls was one of them. So then all of a sudden, okay, you're general manager of a AAA team at, I think I was 27, 28 at the time, whatever it was. So then you start thinking, all right, what am I going to do? What is that next step? But as you get older and you have kids, and your priorities just drastically change. It's not about you. It's not about how far you can go in your career. It's what makes everybody happy. And I never wanted to be a dad that is telling their kids we're, going from this team to that team or moving from this part of the country to that part of the country. And we just, and the other thing is Capital Broadcasting Company is just an incredible company. Like I said earlier, they let me do what I need to do. They give me the guidance when I need it. They give me the resources when I need it. So all of a sudden, those aspirations of, do I look back? Because I guess the NBA, there's two or three guys that back in the, early 2000s were calling me saying, hey, you need to come here. We got this group that we got started. Now I turn around and look, and one of them is president of the Philadelphia 76ers. Another one is president of the soccer team up in New York. He's been over in Europe as a president over there. You look at that and you're like, okay, I could have been with them.
Right.
But then, you know what? It's just not me. I'm just a kind of loyal, hardworking guy. Really feel that it's important that, the things that I'm doing here, more of the guidance with some of the people. And I take just as much fun and credit, seeing some of the people that used to work here go on and do great things than I would with myself. Now, once my kids, I keep telling people here, once my kids, graduate high school, which is, I got a senior and a sophomore, will I start looking at different things? Probably. But I'm not going to just look for things to go somewhere. I'm going to look for something that, really has to, put me in a place where I just think makes the most sense. But I'm very happy here. It's just been a great run.
Sure. You talk about your wife and kids. How do you make it work on a work-life balance level? I know that your kids are heavily involved with baseball themselves, and I know that you're involved then as a parent watching them. Do you guys have a rhythm after so many years running the team of, when is a good time for you guys to vacation, and, how do you work in, watching games when you're also trying to run a team?
Yeah, it's so hard. That's the hardest. And I tell people it's when people are coming into sports, it's really easy to just kind of give them lip service about how hard it is. But once you're in, you just kind of understand that. And I'm much better at it now than I used to be. I would never proclaim that I've been the best at the whole work-life balance thing, and I'm sure my wife would probably agree with that. But you're right. I look back now. And like I said, a senior and a sophomore, and I look back at all those days when they were playing baseball when they were younger, and just all the little things. For us, it was more about, our kids when they were growing up, they were in year-round school, and we did that because we pretty much had the kids had the whole month of October off, and that was a perfect month for me to kind of wind down. So we would always do our vacations and stuff then. Now that they're older, in fact, we right in the middle of the season, right after the ACC tournament, we took a trip back for a week to Wisconsin and just had a tremendous time with the grandparents. And that's the hardest part. You have to remember what's most important. And there were definitely times through this process that I was not the best at that. But now you kind of look back, and I've been very fortunate with my boss George Hable that. He's never been a guy that tells me I have to be here. In fact, he's the one kind of pushing me out the door when he knows something is important for me from a family standpoint. So as long as with the staff that we have, it's just made it much easier for me to get out when I need to, and I feel and I try to do that the same way with our staff. If they need to do something with their family, they don't need to ask me. They just need to tell me. They don't need to ask permission. We know what's most important in this at the end of the day, and it sure isn't the Durham Bulls baseball team.
So say I am, one of your managers, and I just told you that I accepted a new position, and obviously you're bummed. It's a terrible conversation. But what advice are you giving me on my way out as I, potentially begin to, move my family across country and start a new job? Whether it's advice that someone gave you early on, or just something that, maybe you've learned over the years that you like to impart.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. If somebody came in
you'd say get out of here.
If somebody came in and that's the first I heard of it was when they accepted the job, it wouldn't be a good situation.
All right, so maybe
that's
I
what I
positioned
promote
that poorly.
all the time, and it's funny because people are so not used to that mentality.
Right.
They're like afraid to tell their bosses that they're interested in another job, and I ingrain it in people's heads that better not be the way it is. I better know about it. Just be honest with me. This isn't. I know it's kind of a novel concept, but just be honest, and I'll help you. But I think I guess I'd say a couple things. One of the best pieces of advice I got early on was to work on the business, not in the business. And early on, I struggled with that. I wanted to be a part of every single decision, whether it was, tickets, sponsorship, retail operations, and you can't be successful that way. You have to kind of look at the big picture. You have to look from, 10,000 feet about what direction you want things to go in. It's just so easy to look at, come in and say, oh, I got to make 250 phone calls today to from as a ticket sales standpoint. They're not looking at the big picture of okay, if I make 250 phone calls today, I'm going to end up, being this successful in ticket sales. It's going to lead me to this position. You have to kind of look at things that way. And I guess the other piece, and this has helped me a lot since I've been older, but a great piece of advice I got from one of the guys with the Rays is sometimes you have to play for the tie. And I thought that was really interesting because I'm a pretty stubborn person, and I always love to battle and argue and debate things. And when he told me that, it has really helped me over the last 5 to 10 years of you really have to pick and choose what you're kind of fighting for, and you really have to do going along with what I said before, you really have to do kind of see that big picture and try to figure out what is your end game, and then make decisions on a daily basis that kind of fit what that end game is. And ever since he's told me that, I've definitely been better at is not I'm not going to the battles with my bosses. I'm not going to do the things that I used to do because at the end of the day, that's not really the important part. It's kind of looking at that big picture and making sure we're all in the same direction.
Okay, and wrapping up, I'd like to ask everybody the same handful of questions. For you, when the season's going, I know you're fully immersed in Durham Bulls baseball, but maybe off season, you're commuting to work. Are you a podcast guy? Do you like to read certain authors or writers, or are you a big social media guy? And along those lines, where can people find you online?
Yeah, I love to learn. And that can come in many different forms, whether it's reading books or just reading articles or like you said, podcasts or social media. A few on my list, Troy Kirby has just tons of great podcasts that
Sure.
I listen to. Obviously, you gotta read Sports Business Journal. That's just kind of a normal. In terms of podcasts, I think Sports Business Radio. There's Sports Geek. Websites. For minor league baseball, ballparkdigest.com. That's a big one that all of us minor league guys look at. The sportsmarketingreport.com is a big one. For me, I just got obviously the Flipboard app. I have so much sports business stuff on that, so I could sit there at least 2 times a day. I'm looking at Flipboard and just checking out every possible story of whether it's virtual reality or ticket sales or you name it. I'm always trying to, see what other teams are doing. You can never stop learning.
Right. And where can people find you this off season? I assume the winter meetings, and do you go anywhere else?
Yeah, we just, in fact, just got back 2 days ago we finished up the AAA season. We had the AAA National Championship game in Memphis, and we have our league meetings associated with that. Next week we head to Birmingham. We have a minor league baseball promotional seminar where we kind of share ideas and steal ideas, and then Washington for the winter meetings in December. Twitter is probably I'm on all the social media, but
Right.
more so, I'm probably more active on Twitter, and that's at Durham Bulls GM. All the other ones, the Instagrams, the Snapchats, you name it, most of that stuff I'm doing just to try to see what other teams are doing so we can implement them here with the Bulls. But Twitter is probably more me personally.
Sure. And another question I like to ask is, who would round out your ideal golf foursome? Now, I'm hesitant to ask you because I'm assuming you're going to say something like Brett Favre and a bunch of Packers, but and maybe that is the case. But whether it's people in sports, in minor league baseball, executives you've worked with, what would make up your ideal afternoon on the links?
Actually, Brett Favre, I kind of disowned him until last Thanksgiving
right.
when we brought him back in. I don't know. He wouldn't be on my list, unfortunately. He's still crawling back into my life.
Right.
I'd definitely say Michael Jordan. That was the guy that just grew up idolizing, was the whole Michael Jordan thing. For me, I love business and I love finance, and so I would kind of go outside the sports world. I would love to either have like a Warren Buffett or a Bill Gates, or I'd love to just pick their brain on how successful they've been and the changes that they're not only made when they were as part of the business, but now the changes they're doing on a global level. the intelligence on those guys is incredible, and I'd love to just kind of pick their brain a little bit.
That's a pretty heavy foursome right there.
It is pretty good.
So you mentioned Twitter. What is your handle?
At Durham Bulls GM.
Okay, got it. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Mike. We learned a lot. The one thing that stuck with me was, no one's going to outwork you. And, we hear that all the time from people in the industry. But when you hear it from the person at the top, I think that's when it really resonates. So thanks for imparting some words of wisdom and for sharing your background, starting as a 23-year-old GM. That's wild. And now your successful run at the Bulls. So congratulations again, and thank you.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Front Office Exchange, where you hear about the careers of some of the leading executives in sports business. Visit us at frontofficeexchange.com, on Facebook at Front Office Exchange, and on Twitter at Front Office EXCH to access past episodes, show notes, and much, much more.